Geelong and Broadmeadows, and also for those who work in the supply chain, supplying automotive parts to Ford. I want to take this opportunity to explain what will happen from here and what government is determined to do in these circumstances. First, to the workers at Ford. These workers are proud working people who do a great job making Ford cars. This is very hard news for them today, given how proud they are of what they do and the significance of Ford and their work at Ford in their lives and the lives of their families. For those working people, as they absorb this news, I want to say to them, we will make sure that you are not left behind. The government will be providing the most intensive form of employment assistance that we can provide to help people as they source opportunities for the days beyond October 2016, when Ford ceases to manufacture in Australia and those jobs come to an end. We will be working with you to help you get a new opportunity beyond Ford. For those in the supply chain, we understand that this is a day of anxiety for you. We are already working with automotive suppliers to help them diversify their markets. Today, I announce that we are adding to that assistance. As a federal government, we will put an additional $10 million into that work, and the Victorian government has committed an additional $2 million, creating a fund of $12 million to assist those who work in the supply chain. And to the communities of Geelong and Broadmeadows, who also would be very distressed today absorbing this news, we want to work with you and support you as your communities look for the new sources of strength and opportunity in your area, the new places where people will get work and make a living. Today, I announce that we will be creating a fund to work in support of those communities. The federal government will allocate $30 million to this fund. The Victorian government will allocate $9 million to this fund. And today, I call on Ford to make a substantial contribution to this fund as well. The fund will work with local communities so that we can source new opportunities for those communities, new work for people to have in the place where they're proud to work and so happy to live. For Australians generally, I understand many people will hear today's news and it will worry them. I understand that, and I want to say to Australians that here in our nation we show time after time how good we are when we work together. We work together through the global financial crisis to create the strong economy that we have today, an economy that is growing and an economy with low unemployment, with low debt, with low interest rates and with job opportunities for people. The economy that we have today has many sources of strength, but the high Australian dollar is putting a lot of pressure on some industries, particularly manufacturing. We've been working to respond with our $1 billion plan for Australian jobs so that we can continue to be a country that manufactures goods that we want locally and that the world wants to buy from us. We will continue with all of that work, including in automotive, because Australians are very good at manufacturing goods, and we will continue to be a nation that manufactures goods for the future. I'll turn now to Dr. Emerson for some comments, and then we'll take questions.
Thanks, PM. One of the considerations that affected Ford's viability is the fact that it operated on a relatively small scale by international standards and even by national standards. Ford was producing less than 40,000 vehicles per annum, and that's headed towards around 30,000, whereas Toyota and Holden are producing more than 90,000 vehicles a year each. Ford has established a factory in China that is producing 250,000 vehicles per annum, so the economies of scale were not there for Ford's operations in Australia, and that has been a major consideration. I have had the opportunity to speak briefly to Mike Devereaux, the CEO of Holden, and also to Max Yasuda, the CEO of Toyota. And Mr. Devereaux has already put out a release about its commitment to continue to working with the Australian government. They have identified opportunities through to the year 2022, and that's good news for Australian manufacturing and auto manufacturing in particular. And Max Yatsuda, in a brief conversation, indicated that Toyota would continue to invest in and operate here in Australia. So, as the Prime Minister said, this is a very sad day for the workers. This is an incredibly loyal workforce at Ford, and they would be understandably distressed, as would their families and then the broader communities of Geelong and Broadmeadows and those suppliers as well. We will continue to work with them to develop alternative jobs, alternative industries for these areas that actually do have a very positive future. But there's no doubt that today is a sad day for those workers and their families.
Okay, we'll take questions. Obviously, our focus today is on Ford.
Prime Minister, you promised Ford last year $34 million in assistance. The head of Ford says it still expects to receive that money. Does the government intend to use it?
Yes, we do, because that $34 million package was about the models that are going to be produced and to be produced until October 2016. So that money was pledged for a purpose, and it'll still be used for that same purpose. That is enabling jobs to continue to October 2016. What we know now is that the manufacturing jobs won't continue beyond that. Ford will continue to employ people in Australia, 1,500 people, 1,100 of them in design and engineering, but around 1,200 workers today have been given the very hard news that their jobs won't be there after October 2016. And so our thoughts are definitely with them, and obviously we've made preparations for the announcements that we've given you today as to how we will support those working people and also the regions that are affected by today's announcement. I don't want anybody to be left behind as a result of this. I don't want people to feel that there isn't assistance available. It will be available. It will be there.
The Ford has been granted around $1.1 billion by both Conservative and also Labor governments over the past 12 years or so. Was there a time earlier that maybe government should have bitten the bullet and realised that it was just simply not a viable industry for Australia?
Well, I don't agree with your characterisation that making cars isn't a viable industry for Australia. You've just heard the words of Dr. Emerson there, where he has spoken today to Toyota and to Holden. And Dr. Emerson has pointed out that they are manufacturing at a larger scale than Ford. It's not easy days in manufacturing. The strength of the Australian dollar obviously bears down on Australian manufacturing, and it does make it a difficult environment for manufacturing to prosper. We wanted to make sure there are around 1 million Australians employed in manufacturing, that we are still a nation that makes things, that manufactures goods. That's why we've worked with the car industry and will continue to work with the car industry.
And if I could add there, Ross, both Toyota and Holden are plugged into regional and global value chains or supply chains, and that is something that Ford had not been able to do through its manufacturing operations. Through the R&D facility, yes, it will be doing research and development for it's the global business of Ford, but these other two manufacturers have seen the opportunity, indeed the necessity, of tapping into those global supply chains, and that has helped keep them in a position and at a scale that Ford was not able to achieve.
Yeah, and some would argue that giving that, continuing with that $34 million subsidy, throwing the money after bad, we should cut our losses now and pull out. What do you say to that?
Well, I think you've got to be very clear what the $34 million is for, and the $34 million is supporting the cars that will be rolling off the production line, employing people in Geelong and Broadmeadows until